It was March 16th, 2013, a cold night in Amsterdam. In the Komeniostraat, in the heart of Slaughtervaart, a young man of only 21 years old was riddled with bullets. 7 shots, right there on the street, and he collapsed. No ambulance could save him. His name, Rida Bennajem, the youngest man ever on the national most wanted list of the Netherlands. In just a few years, he had risen from a street kid to a feared hitman in the infamous Mocro Maffia. And now he lay there, betrayed by someone he thought he could trust. In this story, I'll take you through his entire life. From his first steps into crime, to the bloody assassinations his name was tied to the fatal trap that cost him his life. Rida Bennajem was born on March 27th in Amsterdam-West. His childhood played out in a world where poverty, temptation, and crime often dominated. He grew up in Bos en Lomer, a neighborhood with a tough reputation. At a young age, he ran into trouble. School couldn't hold him. Teachers described him as intelligent, but restless. Someone who quickly lost his patience and was always seeking excitement. The street became his classroom. He met older boys already deep in crime. For Rida, it felt like coming home. Money, status, respect, that's what he wanted. His first steps were small, running errands for others, delivering packages, stealing scooters now and then. But soon, weapons entered the picture. His name began circulating in the underworld. Not because he was the smartest, but because he did things others were too afraid to do. That made him attractive to higher players in the criminal hierarchy. Rida was young, loyal, and above all, not afraid to shoot. In the years that followed, he developed into one of the most dangerous and talked about figures in Amsterdam's underworld. But like so many others, success came at a price. Friends became enemies, and the adrenaline of the streets slowly turned into paranoia. Rida's first real steps into serious crime came around 2010, and things escalated quickly. Until then, he was known locally as a young guy who wouldn't let himself be pushed around. But in the summer of 2010, that image changed into something far more dangerous. During the Amsterdam Gay Pride, he walked the streets with some friends. In broad daylight, he pulled out a gun and opened fire on 2 rappers, Mr., Probs, and Flex. The bullets struck them in the arm and leg, and both men barely survived. The incident hit the city like a bomb, not only because of the brutality, but because it happened in the middle of a festive crowd. For the police, it was clear. Rida was willing to use extreme violence, without much thought for the consequences. He was arrested, but not for long. As soon as he was free, he didn't disappear quietly. On the contrary, he continued. That same year, he and accomplices carried out an armed robbery at a jeweler in Leiden. The robbery ended in a firefight, during which shots were also fired at the police. This was the last straw for the authorities. His name appeared on the national most wanted list, a place usually reserved for older, experienced criminals. That a 19-year-old was on it made him the youngest wanted man in Dutch history. With a €5,000 reward on his head, he was hunted by police teams in several cities. But Rida didn't hide abroad. He simply hung around Amsterdam-West, as if he were untouchable. That confidence, or maybe arrogance, made him popular in certain circles. Young people saw him as a kind of local legend, someone who defied authority and got away with it. In reality, he lived in an increasingly dangerous web. His reputation drew the attention of bigger players in the underworld, players who could give him assignments others were too afraid to carry out, and that would mark the beginning of his role in a war that would dominate Amsterdam's streets for years to come. Rida's reputation as a ruthless, fearless young man did not go unnoticed. Inside the cafes and shisha lounges of Amsterdam-West sat men who were part of a much larger world, the Mocro Maffia. These loose but deadly efficient networks dealt in millions worth of cocaine, extortion, and especially assassinations. One of the men who took notice of Rida was Abdelhamid Ait Ben Mo, better known as Kikker. He was close to Bennajem, one of the central figures in the battle for the cocaine market. In the shisha lounges, places where criminals exchanged information and made deals, Rida was introduced. He made an immediate impression. Calm, loyal, and most importantly, not afraid to shoot. For the older criminals, he was exactly what they needed. A young soldier who carried out orders without questions. From that moment on, Rida began to climb. Rumors spread that he was involved in multiple violent actions on Bennajem's orders. Among those assignments were assassinations directly linked to the infamous Mocro War, such as the murder of Bennajem Boo Boo in Antwerp in October 2012. Boo Boo was seen as a rival in the cocaine trade, and his death sparked a chain of bloody reprisals. There were also strong indications that Rida played a role in the double assassination in Amsterdam's Staatsliedenpoort at the end of 2012. 2 men were shot dead with heavy weapons. The incident showed that the battle for power and money in the underworld knew no limits. Police and prosecutors kept a close eye on him, but hard evidence was difficult to gather. Rida remained free, which only made him more dangerous. Within Bennajed's circle, he gained a reputation as a reliable executor. He spoke little, listened a lot, and did what was asked. In the underworld, that usually meant only one thing: your life would be short but intense. His name was now not only on police lists, but also on enemies' hit lists. The streets where he once played as a child had become his hunting ground. And though he knew there was always a price to pay in this war, he seemed convinced it wasn't meant for him. By early 2013, the tension in the underworld was razor sharp. Assassinations followed one another at high speed. Rida knew he was a target, yet he stayed close to home. While others fled to Spain or Morocco, he walked around Amsterdam-West, the same streets where he had grown up. It gave him a sense of control, but in reality, it was reckless. At that moment, he was on the radar not only of the police, but also of rival gangs. Suspicion grew within his own network. Rumors spread that people close to him were secretly passing on information. In the world of the Mocro Maffia, that can only mean one thing: your days are numbered. The betrayal came in the form of a small, innocent-looking gift. According to multiple sources, Rida received a BlackBerry phone in January 2013 from someone he knew. What he didn't know was that the device contained advanced spyware. Everything he did, texts, calls, even his exact location, was sent in real time to those who wanted him dead. It was a silent but deadly trap. Later investigations showed his movements had been tracked for weeks. His routines, favorite spots, even the people he spoke to, were carefully mapped out. For his enemies, it was just a matter of waiting for the perfect moment. On March 16, 2013, that moment came. He received a message from someone he trusted, likely H, a code name that appeared in later investigations. The plan: to grab dinner at Restaurant du Maroc, a well-known meeting spot in Slotervaart. Nothing suggested it was a trap. It seemed like a normal evening, a break from the constant stress of his life. What Rida didn't know was that the gunmen were already waiting. His location, betrayed by the hacked phone, was the final missing piece. While he thought he was heading for dinner, he walked straight into the arms of his killers. It was late in the evening of March 16, 2013. The air above Amsterdam was heavy and still, the streets of Slotervaart dimly lit by orange street lamps. Rida walked toward Criminality, on his way to the planned dinner at Restaurant du Maroc. He wore no bulletproof vest, carried no weapons, perhaps because he thought he was among friends. It was a moment where, after weeks of tension, he seemed to relax. But in the shadows of parked cars, his killers waited. They knew exactly where he would be, thanks to the hacked BlackBerry in his pocket. When he turned the corner, there was no warning. The first shots came at close range, directly into his upper body. He tried to duck but was hit in the neck and face. Witnesses heard short, sharp cracks, followed by silence. He collapsed in the middle of the street, blood flowing over the pavement. Within minutes, police arrived, but nothing could be done. In his pocket, they found the small Quran booklet he always carried, next to the phone that had betrayed him. His death shocked the neighborhood, but in the underworld it was seen as the logical outcome of a war without rules. A 22-year-old man was arrested shortly after, but released for lack of evidence. The identity of H and the actual masterminds officially remained unknown, unsolved but not forgotten. For those who knew him, it was no surprise. Rida had always known the streets had no pension plan. He just never thought it would end so soon. Rida Bennajem's life was a short, fierce flame. He grew up in a world where power and status seemed more important than safety or a future. His rapid rise within the Mocro Maffia made him notorious, but also vulnerable. Every step higher in that world brought him closer to his end. His story is one of loyalty and betrayal, of courage and recklessness. He had chances to pull back, but chose time and again the path of violence. In the end, it wasn't a police raid or a large-scale operation that took him down, but a small device in his pocket, and someone who knew how to use it. Today, Rida is mainly a symbol of how fast you can rise and how hard you can fall. A lesson from the underworld: no one is untouchable.